A millionaire walks into the wrong room. What a poor janitor says brings him to tears. The elevator doors opened with a dry sound, and Gabriel Whitmore crossed the marble lobby with firm, silent steps. His watch read 6:42 p.m. The day had been long, like most days. 4 meetings, 2 multi-million-dollar purchasing decisions, and 1 debate with the board about acquiring an old property in the city's historic district. All resolved, all clean, almost. He walked down the corridor of the 47th floor, heading toward the archive room, wanting to personally review a contract that, according to his assistant, existed only in physical form, a detail outside the norm. He preferred everything to be digital, controlled, archived on encrypted servers, but now the contract was somewhere in the tower, forgotten, and he would handle it himself, quietly, without depending on anyone else. He pushed open the door of the room at the far end on the left. Not even looking at the sign, he stepped inside. And then he stopped. A woman, kneeling on the floor with her back to him, was scrubbing an old stain at the baseboard. She wore a simple navy blue uniform, her hair pulled into a hasty bun, with loose strands falling beside her face. Upon hearing the door, she turned quickly, her wide brown eyes startled. "Sorry," Gabriel said immediately. "I thought this was the archive room." The woman stood up quickly, wiping her hands on her apron. Her posture was steady, though surprised. "No problem, sir. This room is just for maintenance." She lowered her eyes briefly, then met his gaze again. Her voice was calm, but there was something in it, a subtle strength like someone not used to bowing. Gabriel made a move to leave, his hand already on the doorknob. But before the door closed, he heard her voice again, softer, as if not meant for him to hear. "Sad thing is cleaning a place you'll never be able to call home." He stopped. Slowly he turned back, looking at the woman now gathering buckets and cleaning rags. She didn't look at him. It wasn't a comment meant to impress. It was an outburst, real, cutting, and strange enough to hold him there. "What's your name?" he asked, not quite sure why. She hesitated, surprised by the question, but answered, "Olivia." "Olivia Bennett," Gabriel repeated, recognizing the last name. He'd read it somewhere before, maybe on a staff list or one of the HR reports. There were hundreds of operations employees in the Whitmore Tower, but now that name had a face. She nodded, still cautious. "How long have you worked here?" 4 months, she said, brushing her shoulders as if the uniform carried invisible dust. "Night shift, 3 times a week." Gabriel stood still. Her words were still echoing in his mind. "Cleaning a place you'll never be able to call home." He looked around. The damp floor, the cold overhead light, the sharp smell of cleaning chemicals. The room was simple, functional, like so many others. But right then it felt charged. "Where do you live?" he asked without thinking. Even to him, the question sounded intrusive. Olivia looked at him, her chin slightly raised. She didn't seem intimidated, just tired. Of questions, of promises, of life. Lincoln Heights, Westford Complex, one of the oldest buildings in the South Side. Gabriel knew it. One of the properties his company had purchased 2 years ago. It was under redevelopment planning. Many residents had already left. Others were still holding out. "I see," he replied, his gaze now steadier. She nodded slowly, and as if sensing that he wasn't ready to leave yet, she took a deep breath. "Look, Mr. Whitmore, I appreciate the job, really. It's helped me cover the basics at home, but sometimes it's hard. Working in a place that shines on the outside, you know, marble, glass, imported coffee in the lobby, and then you go home to a leaky roof and a late gas bill." She shrugged. "It's not a complaint, it's just life." Gabriel didn't answer, but something in his chest seemed to tighten. He was a rational man. He'd brokered territorial battles between real estate giants, faced down shareholder boards hungry for dividends, kept a cool head when cutting investments from projects with faces, families, stories. He'd done it for years, with precision, with logic. But now, in that wrong room, facing a woman with steady eyes and an unaffected voice, he felt a kind of discomfort that no signature could resolve. "Do you have kids?" he asked, surprised at himself for continuing the conversation. I have a daughter, Emily, 8 years old. The answer came quickly, almost automatically, but the name was spoken with softness. She stays with the neighbor while I work. Gabriel nodded slowly. The name Emily hung in the air like a faint thread of light. He glanced at his watch again. It now read 6:59 p.m. I hope I didn't interrupt your work, he said finally. You did, but it's okay. A short but genuine smile appeared on her lips. He couldn't tell if it was irony or just honesty. Have a good night, Olivia. You too, sir. Gabriel left the room without hurrying. The hallway seemed longer than before. The tower's silence, usually comforting, now felt oppressive. When he reached his office, he no longer remembered the contract he'd come for. He sat in the leather chair and looked out at the lit-up city. The lights were just as beautiful as always, but something felt off. That sentence. Sad thing is cleaning a place you'll never be able to call home. It kept echoing back. Simple, honest, raw. He tried to get back to his routine, opened his laptop, checked the next day's calendar, drafted 2 short messages, but the focus was gone. Olivia's face, serious but not bitter, kept appearing in his mind with striking clarity, and her daughter's name, Emily, echoed like a memory he couldn't place. That night, Gabriel went home later than usual. As he stepped into the foyer of his penthouse apartment, he didn't turn the lights on right away. He stood still for a while, watching the city's shadow projected on the glass. A different kind of silence took over the space. It wasn't peace, it was emptiness, and even surrounded by everything he had built, the luxury, the control, the power, he felt for the first time in years that he had stepped into a room that might change more than just his path at the end of a workday. Gabriel's umbrella flipped inside out the moment he stepped out of the car. The sky above Lincoln Heights was heavy and grey, and a cold drizzle fell in uneven spurts, as if even the weather couldn't make up its mind. He shut the door of the black sedan and looked around with restrained alertness. The cracked sidewalks, weeds creeping up the edges of crumbling walls, windows with crooked blinds, everything there seemed to be silently calling for help. He turned the corner onto Westford Court, keeping a steady pace. He knew exactly where he was going, though he hadn't told anyone at the office. It wasn't the kind of place CEOs typically showed up, especially not on a late Tuesday afternoon. No entourage, no driver, no press. He stopped in front of a 3-story building, its brick facade weathered and peeling. The Westford condominium sign was hanging by a single screw. The air was thick with the smell of mildew and frying oil. Gabriel took a deep breath before climbing the damp concrete steps. On the 3rd floor, the dimly lit hallway led to numbered doors marked with masking tape. He stopped at 3B. It was slightly ajar. He knocked twice with his knuckles. 1 minute, came a muffled voice from inside. The door opened with a creak. The woman who appeared was the same one from the maintenance office, Olivia. No uniform now. She wore a faded grey t-shirt and jeans. Her hair was tied back in a practical knot, a few strands clinging to her sweaty forehead. Her expression shifted from surprise to something harder, suspicion. Mr. Whitmore. Olivia, he said with a brief nod. May I come in? She held the door for a moment, a tense pause. Her gaze dropped to his wet shoes, then returned to meet his eyes. If you're here to say we're being evicted, don't bother. The building manager already left the notice in our mailbox yesterday. We're already packing. Gabriel didn't reply right away. He just took a deep breath, maintaining his upright posture. No, that's not why I'm here. I just wanted to talk, if that's okay. She hesitated for another moment, then opened the door wider. He stepped inside. The apartment was small, with worn furniture and creaky floors. A couch with a torn armrest, a makeshift bookshelf made of crates, and on the wall, children's drawings taped up with masking tape. The air smelled of laundry detergent and stale bread. Have a seat if you want, Olivia said, gesturing to a chair near the table. I don't have coffee or tea, just milk and tap water. No need to worry, Gabriel replied, taking a seat. She remained standing, arms crossed, body tense, like someone ready to defend herself. Why did you come here? She asked. He took a few seconds before answering. I've been thinking about something you said yesterday. Which part? She asked flatly. It's sad to clean a place you'll never get to call home. She looked away, didn't respond, but made no effort to hide that the words still stung. That wasn't meant for you, she said at last. It was just a thought out loud. I know, but it hit me. He leaned forward slightly. Made me realize I might have been looking at everything through the wrong lens for a long time. Olivia narrowed her eyes at him. Do you usually visit the apartments your company is about to tear down? No, he said honestly. You're the first person who made me want to. She gave a half smile, ironic. So what are you going to do? Cancel the project? Save the building? She shook her head. Don't bother pretending to be noble, Mr. Whitmore. I get how this works. The city needs to grow, the tower gleams, the asphalt swallows the homes. That's how it is. Always has been. Gabriel looked at her, not with superiority, but with focus. I didn't come here to make promises. I just thought I should better understand what's happening to the people living here, especially you and your daughter. At the word daughter, Olivia tensed. Emily has nothing to do with this. She's just a child. I know, he replied. That's exactly why I care. Olivia dropped her gaze for a moment, then sighed. What do you want from us, Mr. Whitmore? A vote of confidence, he said without hesitation. I want you to keep working at Whitmore Tower, but with better security. Without fear of being let go at any moment, I want to make sure you and your daughter have a place to stay until you're back on your feet. And I want you to know this isn't charity. It's opportunity. Opportunity? She raised an eyebrow. For who? For you, he said, meeting her eyes. And maybe for me too. She laughed, soft, restrained, but there was pain in that sound. I've heard promises like that before, from men with fancy words, expensive watches, and shoes that don't sink in the mud. It always ends the same. We disappear into the footnotes of history. She uncrossed her arms. But I'll keep the job, and I'll take the shelter, just until I can stand on my own again. Gabriel nodded. He didn't smile. He simply acknowledged her resolve. And Emily? He asked. She's coming with me, of course. I don't leave my daughter with anyone I don't trust. She looked him in the eye. And I haven't decided if you fall into that category yet. Fair enough, he replied with a slight nod. Just then a door down the hallway creaked open and a little girl appeared, thin brown hair tied into two messy braids, holding a stuffed animal with one torn ear. Mom, Olivia turned. Emily, this is Mr. Whitmore. Remember I told you about my job? Emily nodded, eyes wide. She stepped closer, eyeing Gabriel as if he were a character from a comic book. You're the boss of the glass tower. Gabriel looked down and softened his expression. I am. Is it true there's an elevator that goes all the way to the sky? He smiled, first with his eyes, then his mouth. Almost. Emily bit her lip, thinking, then pointed to a drawing taped to the wall. I made that yesterday. It's a house with a yard, with a swing. It even has a cat. Gabriel stood and walked over to the paper. He studied every line, bright colors, crooked shapes. But there was something else there. Hope. It's beautiful, he said. Do you like drawing? A lot. One day I'm going to build real houses, but ones no one can take away. Olivia slowly approached, placing a hand on her daughter's shoulder. Gabriel turned to face them both, and in that moment, something inside him shifted. He couldn't explain it. He just knew he was there for a reason bigger than he yet understood. Good night, Mr. Whitmore, Olivia said politely but firmly. We'll see you at the tower tomorrow. Good night, Olivia. Good night, Emily. He left the apartment in silence, descending the steps slowly. Outside, the drizzle continued, persistent, washing the concrete without hurry. And inside him, something too began to be washed away, or perhaps uncovered after being buried for so long under cement, glass, and silence. Olivia, can you check the panels in the glass elevator today? Asked Margot, the cleaning supervisor, holding a clipboard with notes. They're saying there are fingerprints on the inside. Sure can, Olivia replied with a slight nod, already pushing the cleaning cart down the wide hallway of the 32nd floor. The tower felt like a completely different world from the one she came from. The floor gleamed as if it had been polished with light. The walls were made of glass and steel, reflecting the city sky in metallic tones. The hallways smelled of expensive coffee and brand new air conditioning. Everything was silent and orderly, as if even the noise had been trained to behave. Olivia passed employees dressed in sleek suits, quiet shoes, tablets in hand. No one looked at her for more than a second. She was invisible, part of the structure like the fire extinguishers or light switches. But that morning, something felt different. She hadn't slept well, her body tired from the constant effort, yet something inside her remained upright. Emily had woken up smiling, and that alone was enough. On the 42nd floor, she entered the empty glass elevator and locked the door with the maintenance key. The city stretched beneath her feet like a quilt of concrete and light. She cleaned the panels with firm, precise movements, wasting no energy. Each motion was methodical. For her, cleaning was almost a ritual. As she worked, she thought about Gabriel. The look in his eyes when he saw Emily's drawing, the way he spoke, not hiding his awkwardness about her reality. There was no arrogance in his voice, just a kind of quiet respect. And that surprised her more than any empty promise ever could. Later that afternoon, she was organizing supplies in the janitor's closet on the 5th floor when she heard the soft sound of sneakers on the polished floor. She turned slowly. "Emily?" she called, her brows furrowed. The little girl appeared in the hallway with her yellow backpack and old teddy bear hanging from a zipper. "Aunt Jessica brought me early today," she said, smiling. "Can I wait here until you're done?" "You can, but stay close, okay? No running in the halls," Olivia warned gently. Emily nodded and sat down by the wall, pulling a sketchbook and colored pencils from her backpack. As Olivia sealed the last boxes of supplies, Gabriel walked down the hallway, just leaving a meeting. The animated conversation he was having with 2 executives stopped when he spotted the child sitting on the floor. "Emily," he said, surprised, slowing his pace. She looked up and smiled. "Hi, Mr. Serious." Gabriel raised an eyebrow and stepped closer. "Mr. Serious? That's what I call you," she said proudly, "because you never smile. But now you're almost smiling." The 2 executives behind Gabriel stifled a laugh and stepped away, sensing this wasn't their moment. "I'm Gabriel," he corrected, kneeling in front of her. "And you're here because I'm waiting for my mum. She's working. I brought my pencils. Look." She held out the sketchbook and flipped to a colorful drawing. It showed a tall tower with shining windows and a garden around it. "Is that the glass tower?" he asked. "Yep, but with plants on top and a swing on the roof," she explained, as if it were obvious. "Because buildings can be happy too." Gabriel looked at her for a moment, then at the drawing. "I like the idea of a swing on the roof." "You can do it. You're the boss here, right?" "In a way, yes." "Then do it," he smiled. "This time, for real." "I'll think about it." Olivia stepped out of the closet just then and froze when she saw them. "Emily, I told you not to leave your spot." "She's fine," Gabriel said, standing up. "She's just teaching me about swings on skyscrapers." "Sorry, Mr. Whitmore," Olivia said, gently taking her daughter's hand. "She shouldn't be bothering anyone." "She's not. She brings something good." Olivia frowned slightly, unsure what to make of that, but said nothing. "We're done for today," she said to her daughter. "Go put your pencils away." Gabriel walked off quietly, but before turning the corner, he looked back. Emily was watching him. When she saw him glance her way, she waved. He waved back. In the days that followed, Emily's presence became a small constant. Sometimes she drew while sitting in the cafeteria. Other times she showed up with an apple in hand, asking if she could wait where you can see the city. Gabriel, without realizing it, started to notice more. He paused when he saw Olivia cleaning the windows, when he saw Emily sitting cross-legged on the floor, coloring with focus. Those 2 quiet presences seemed to shift the rhythm of the tower, as if a new note had been added to the repetitive melody of the days. One afternoon, Olivia was cleaning the emergency stair railings when she heard footsteps approaching. Gabriel was walking down calmly. He rarely used the stairs. "Hiding from the elevator?" she asked, not lifting her eyes. "Looking for a little silence," he replied. "And maybe noticing the people who actually make this place work." She looked at him, trying to grasp what he meant by that. I just clean. And yet this floor shines. She finished what she was doing and draped the cloth over the bucket. You don't have to pretend to be kind to me. I'm not pretending. Her eyes met his, and for a moment there were no stairs, no tower, no titles, just two people looking at each other in silence. That night, Gabriel was on the 48th floor, alone, looking out at the city through the windows. His reflection showed a serious face, but the eyes, there was something different there, something he couldn't quite name. On the desk lay Emily's drawing, the tower with a swing on the roof. He turned the paper over and quietly wrote on the back, "Maybe you're right." He folded the paper carefully, as if protecting something important. And in that moment, he knew those two, mother and daughter, were becoming more than passing figures in his routine. They were a sign, a reminder, a new beginning disguised as chance. "Mr. Gabriel, good morning. The conference room is ready, the files have been updated as requested, and the coffee was served 30 minutes early," Ava, his assistant, reported as she handed him a clipboard with the day's schedule. "Thank you, Ava," he replied without taking his eyes off the elevator's digital display. Ava hesitated a moment before adding in a quieter tone, "The child, Emily, Olivia's daughter, she's waiting in the hallway on the 18th floor, alone, again." Gabriel turned his face toward her. His expression was neutral, but his eyes narrowed. "Has anyone complained?" "No, sir, but she's starting to draw attention." He nodded slightly and stepped out of the elevator without another word. Emily was sitting on the cold hallway floor, drawing with a broken blue pencil. Her backpack leaned against the wall, her teddy bear on her lap. When she saw Gabriel, she looked up and gave him an instant smile. "I thought you weren't coming by today." "And what made you think I would?" "Because you always pass by at this time," she said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "And I wanted to show you this." She held out her drawing. It was a house surrounded by trees with a staircase that led to the sky, where clouds had smiling faces. "Do you think clouds get sad when buildings are too tall and block them?" Gabriel raised an eyebrow, studying the paper. "I've never thought about that." "I did," she said seriously. "That's why if I build buildings, they'll have windows so the clouds can peek through." He gave a soft chuckle, lowering his eyes to meet the girls. "You want to be an architect?" "I don't know yet, but I like making houses. Houses that hug people, like when my mom hugs me when I'm scared." Gabriel stayed silent. Emily had no idea how deeply her words struck him. He remembered a childhood spent in a house that never hugged anyone, with locked windows, loud voices, and slamming doors. "Have you ever been scared, Gabriel?" The question came without warning, like a silent arrow. He looked at her directly, without smiling, without backing away. "Yes, I have." "Of what?" "Of losing something I didn't know I needed," he answered, his voice steady but soft. Emily just nodded, as if she understood perfectly. Then she went back to scribbling on the floor with her blue pencil. "You should smile more, you know. You look less serious that way." He sighed and crouched down to her level. "I'm smiling on the inside. I just haven't learned how to show it yet." "Want me to teach you?" The laugh that escaped Gabriel was brief and almost surprised even him. "Maybe one day." Later, while reviewing reports in his office, he glanced distractedly at the reflection of the city in the glass, the noise of the cars, the distant skyscrapers. And suddenly he saw Olivia's reflection walking down the hallway with a mop and bucket. Without thinking, he stood up and left the room. "Olivia," he called. She stopped, turning cautiously. "Mr. Whitmore? Can you come with me for a moment?" She hesitated for half a second, then nodded. They entered an empty meeting room. He closed the door behind them. She stayed close to the wall, like someone who knows exactly where she stands and that she doesn't belong there. "I saw Emily today. She was waiting for you, drawing in the hallway." Gabriel crossed his arms. "Do you always bring her?" "Not always. Only when the neighbor has to go out or when I don't want to leave her alone in the building. It's safe here, and she likes coming." "I noticed," he replied, serious but without judgment. "If it's a problem, I can find another solution." "It's not a problem," he said before she could finish. I just wanted to understand better." Olivia relaxed her shoulders a little. "Emily is my whole world. If I could, I'd be with her all the time. But it's hard. We're still trying to get through a rough patch. And she's always been more mature than her age. Sometimes she protects me more than the other way around." He nodded, watching the woman in front of him more closely. Olivia wasn't just an employee. She wasn't just the mother of the girl who lingered in his thoughts. She was a whole woman, holding up a world with tired arms and a watchful gaze. "She's very perceptive," he said. "She asks questions most adults wouldn't dare to. That's just how she is, always has been." Silence. "You're not how I imagined you'd be," Olivia said, looking directly at him. "And how did you think I'd be?" "Arrogant, indifferent. A man who never looks down because he believes everything that matters is above him." Gabriel lifted one corner of his mouth. It wasn't quite a smile, but it was the closest he'd come in a long time. "Maybe I was that man for a long time. And now? Now, I'm not sure. But some things are changing." She kept her eyes fixed on his, steady, like someone searching for cracks in the surface. "If you really are changing, don't try to save us. We don't want charity. We want dignity. And you have it. I'm just trying not to ignore that." "Then don't ignore it," she said, picking up the cloth from the bucket. "But don't try to fix what you don't understand either." He didn't reply. He just watched her as she walked back into the hallway, leaving behind a trail of soap and truth. That night, Emily handed him a new drawing. It was a trio, a woman, a girl, and a man in a suit, all holding hands at the edge of the sea. "That's you, Mommy, and me," she explained, as if there was no room for doubt. Gabriel took the paper in his large hands, and the silence that followed was as dense as the overcast sky hanging over the city at that hour. A silence that didn't hurt, but somehow healed. The doorknob turned with a soft creak as Olivia pushed open the door to the forgotten room. The space smelled of old dust, metal, and documents that had been stored for decades. It was the first time she was cleaning that room. Apparently, it had been used occasionally as a storage area for physical files. The blinds were partially closed, letting the morning light in through slanted beams that cut across the dimness. She pushed the cleaning cart inside, tied her hair into a messy bun, and pulled on her gloves. A dusty room was never just about the dust. There was always memory layered in every corner, as if the walls held the breath of those who had once been there. She started by wiping down the central table, then moved on to the shelves. The books were disorganized, leaning against each other like people waiting for an answer. She scrubbed hard, each movement in rhythm with her breathing. When she bent down to reach the bottom of a bookcase, she noticed a drawer slightly ajar, hidden beneath a pile of old folders. She reached out and carefully pulled it open. There, under a few yellowed pages, was a dark wooden picture frame, its corners chipped. It was face down. She turned it over with her fingers, and when she saw the image, she froze. Two young men standing on a beach, laughing. One had wavy dark brown hair, a white t-shirt, a calm expression. The other, taller, arms crossed, smiled with a certain restraint. The same look she had seen so many times in an older, hardened face. It was Gabriel. Younger, yes, but unmistakable. But it was the man beside him that made her body freeze. "No," she whispered, barely audible. The air seemed to leave her lungs, and for a moment she had to steady herself against the bookcase to keep from falling. It can't be. Those eyes, that smile. It was impossible to forget. She knew that face the way she knew the sound of her own daughter sleeping. "Ethan!" The word came out like an old prayer, choked. She held the picture frame in both hands and felt her heart pounding hard, as if it were trying to break out of her chest. Time became a vortex, and everything collapsed. The memories, buried for nearly a decade, came rushing back as if they had been waiting there in that forgotten object. The sound of the door being pushed open brought her back. Emily came running in, backpack slung over one shoulder and a folded drawing in her hand. "Mom, look what I—" She stopped. She saw her mother's pale face. Then she saw the picture. She walked slowly toward Olivia and looked at the photo. Her eyes widened, and her voice dropped to a shocked whisper. "Mom, that's Dad." Olivia looked at her, eyes brimming with tears. Emily pointed to the man in the white t-shirt. That's him, I remember. He's the same one from the photo in the closet, the one you used to keep when I was little. Olivia knelt down, still holding the frame, and hugged her daughter tightly. The two of them stayed there, wrapped in a silence that said everything words couldn't. Yes, it's him, Olivia whispered, smoothing her daughter's hair. That's your father. Emily looked again at the photo, then at the other man beside him. And that's Mr. Gabriel? Before Olivia could answer, the door opened again. Gabriel walked in, eyes focused on the clipboard he was holding, but he stopped in the middle of the room when he saw the scene. Olivia kneeling, holding her daughter, the picture frame in their hands. His face froze, the color drained from his skin like paint washed away by rain. Where did you find that? Olivia stood slowly, keeping her daughter close. She held the frame to her chest like a shield, or maybe like a lament. It was in a drawer, under some papers. Gabriel took a step forward. His eyes locked on the photograph, his face tightened, but there was something in his eyes, a controlled tremble, a crack. You know him, don't you? Olivia asked, her voice steady despite the emotion. I do, he said, barely audible. I did. Ethan Bennett. He was my best friend. Silence. Emily took her mother's hand. He was my dad. Gabriel looked at her, as if seeing something in her for the first time. The tone of her skin, the shape of her eyes, the sweet smile. And suddenly, everything made sense. What do you mean? He swallowed hard. He never told me. He died before he could, Olivia said quietly, her voice filled with pain. We had a fight. He left in the middle of the night, said he needed to take care of some things. 3 days later, I got the news. A car accident. And you were on the list of people he never got the chance to call. Gabriel brought a hand to his face in silence. No tears came, but the tension in his shoulders and his clenched jaw spoke louder than any sob. He took a deep breath, looked away from the photograph. Why didn't he ever tell me about you two? Because he was afraid. Afraid of your judgment. Afraid you wouldn't understand. And because you were already distant, he thought he'd disappoint you. I would have understood. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated with himself. I should have reached out to him so many years. I just let time pass. And I just tried to survive. Olivia pressed her lips together. There wasn't space to look for anyone else. No time for explanations. Emily had been watching them silently. Then she held out the drawing she had made. This is Daddy, and this is us. He's always here, even if nobody sees him. Gabriel bent down to take the drawing. His fingers trembled slightly. When he looked at the paper, he felt something inside him break in two. It was Ethan, drawn simply, dark hair, a big smile, and a child in his arms. He would have been a good father, Gabriel said, his voice hoarse. He would have, Olivia agreed, but now she only has me, and for some reason I still don't understand you. Gabriel stood slowly. Olivia still held the photograph. He looked at Ethan's face in the image, at his own younger face beside his friend. I failed him, and I failed you both, but I won't turn my back now. I'm not asking for anything, Gabriel, she said, calling him by his name for the first time. I'm not here for pity. I just want to raise my daughter in peace. And I want to make sure you have that. She looked into his eyes for a long moment. Then, without saying another word, she left the room with Emily's hand in hers, the picture held to her chest. Gabriel stayed there, motionless, surrounded by boxes of documents and dust, Emily's drawing in his hands. In that moment, he understood that some mistakes couldn't be undone, but some paths could still be chosen. And he had just chosen his. The sound of raindrops trickling down the tower's facade was muffled, almost imperceptible within the controlled silence of Whitmore Tower. Gabriel stared at the reflection in the glass wall of his office. The city looked distant, wet, blurred by the morning mist, but his mind wasn't there. It was 9 years in the past, on the beach, in Ethan's laughter, in the last conversation they had, where pride spoke louder than friendship. The image of Olivia, holding the portrait in her arms, her gaze steady and wounded, was still alive in his memory. And Emily, with those eyes that saw everything, with questions that pierced through his armor in silence. That child was Ethan's daughter. She was the blood of his best friend, and he never knew. The office buzzer sounded. "Come in," he said, still facing the window. The door creaked open softly. Olivia entered, her steps careful. She wasn't wearing the uniform. Instead, she wore casual clothes, simple but well kept. Her hair was tied back more tightly, her face clean without makeup. Just her, real, in front of him. "They asked me to come up," she said, stopping in front of the desk. "So here I am." Gabriel turned slowly and motioned to the chair across from him. She sat down with her back straight, her eyes fixed on his. "Thank you for coming." "I don't usually do this kind of favor," she said bluntly, "but I thought we should talk, calmly." "I agree." A brief silence fell between them, heavy but not hostile, the kind of silence that comes before decisions that can't be undone. "I didn't know about Emily," he began, his voice steady but low. "Ethan never told me. Not about you, not about the daughter." "He wanted to," Olivia said, lacing her fingers in her lap. "He told me that last night, that he was ready to face everything. You, the family, the past. Said he was going to find you. But he ran out of time. Life didn't wait. Gabriel looked down, then back at her. "We fought, over something stupid. Ego. I thought he'd betrayed me in a business deal, but later I realized it wasn't like that at all. I just let pride win. And I never spoke to him again. And I was left with the silence," she said, with a frankness that wasn't accusatory, just a fact. With the longing, the pregnancy, the long days, the unbearable nights. And then, with Emily, the best and hardest gift of my life. Gabriel leaned back in his chair, his eyes locked on hers. And now, here I am, trying to figure out what to do with all of this. "What you do is up to you," she said, crossing her arms, not backing down. "But I'll tell you what I don't want, pity or interference disguised as kindness. Emily and I have made it this far. We can keep going." He nodded respectfully. "I don't want to intrude on what you've built, but I want to be part of it, if you'll let me. Not out of guilt. For Ethan. For her." Olivia took a deep breath, her eyes briefly welling up before she composed herself. "Emily admires you. She talks about you with a kind of ease that scares me, like she's already accepted your presence in our lives, and she doesn't even know everything it means." "Maybe she feels it," Gabriel replied. "Kids know more than we give them credit for. Does she see Ethan in me?" "Sometimes," Olivia said, "but I think she sees you as you are, and that honestly scares me more." "Why?" "Because I'm starting to see you too," she whispered. Another silence settled, softer this time, more intimate. "Gabriel, I never expected this," she continued. "Not at all. When I took the job here, it was just to have enough for food and rent, not to run into ghosts, not to see my past written all over the face of my boss. And I never thought a man like me could be caught off guard by a woman like you. What kind of woman do you think I am?" He stood and walked over to the window. He stayed there a moment, looking out at the wet city. Then he turned back to her. Strong, uncompromising, brave, dignified, and maybe more like me than I wanted to admit. Olivia stood slowly, as if his words had touched something she'd been trying to keep untouched. "That's a dangerous trap. I'm not looking for traps or promises, just truth." She nodded, holding his gaze. After a moment, she stepped closer to him. "Then here's my truth. I'm going to keep working. Emily will still show up from time to time. But you need to decide whether you'll be with us as a man who meets our eyes, or as someone who only knows how to watch from afar." "I'm trying to learn how to do both," he said, softer now. "Then start with the harder one," she replied. "Come closer." They stood there, face to face, in silence. The rain outside seemed to have eased, but drops were still trickling down the glass. It felt as if the world were washing away the excess, clearing what needed to be seen clearly. Gabriel extended his hand. It wasn't a gesture of dominance, it was an invitation. Olivia looked at it for a moment, then accepted. Her hand fit into his firmly, without hesitation, as if it were inevitable. "For Ethan," he said. "For Emily," she replied. "And for us, maybe?" he ventured. She didn't answer, but she didn't let go of his hand either. They stayed like that, two broken people, finding in the crack the exact place where the light begins to shine through. The muffled sound of footsteps echoed through the hardwood-paneled hallway on the 38th floor of Whitmore Tower. Gabriel walked in silence, one hand in his pocket, eyes steady. But inside, each step was an attempt to understand how a life so carefully organized for years could now be reshaped by a little girl and a woman he never expected to meet. As he turned the corner toward the maintenance area, he saw Olivia leaning over a supply cabinet, checking labels with focus. She wore the new uniform, spotless, neatly fitted, not out of vanity but discipline. Her hair was tied back more delicately, and there was something in her eyes. Concentration, yes, but also something more. Something Gabriel had come to recognize over the past few days. The quiet strength of someone who keeps going, even while carrying the weight of the world. He approached, stopping at the doorway. "You always treat the supply cabinet like you're inspecting a lab?" Olivia didn't turn right away, but the shadow of a smile appeared on her face. "And you always show up when I'm busy, only when what you're doing looks more interesting than my meeting schedule." She turned then, clipboard in hand, one eyebrow raised. "Does it?" "Today it does." Gabriel crossed his arms. "Are you reorganizing the shifts?" "I am. The team's grown, and I'm in charge of the department now, remember? I'm the one who suggested your promotion, remember? I just didn't expect you to take the job more efficiently than the last two supervisors. What did you expect? That I'd fail?" "No." He lowered his voice. "I expected exactly this, that you'd take charge, like it had always been yours. Because it was." Olivia held her posture, but her eyes softened. "I can't tell if I'm flattered or suspicious." "Stay sharp, always," said Gabriel, offering a half smile. She laughed briefly, then turned back to the labels with renewed seriousness. "Emily asked about you yesterday," she said without warning. Gabriel straightened slightly. "She did?" "Said you've disappeared, that you're less present," she added, quoting her daughter's words with an almost amused expression. "Apparently, you've stopped walking past her hallway on Tuesdays." "I've been trying not to intrude on your time together," he said sincerely, "trying to understand my boundaries. She misses you, and I notice when you're not around too." There was a pause, not tense, just full. "Olivia," Gabriel began, stepping forward, "have you ever thought about doing something beyond this?" She frowned. "Beyond cleaning? Beyond all of this? Management, administration, maybe even leading a larger department? You've got vision and you're more capable than half the people sitting in those glass offices." "I don't have a degree, Gabriel, no MBA, no connections. All I've got is this clipboard, my hands, and the certainty that my daughter eats dinner every night. And you think that's not enough? I think it's real, and that's what keeps me going." He took another step. "If you wanted, I could help you grow, support you through a course, training, whatever you need. Not because I think you need it, but because you deserve it." She took a deep, slow breath. "And what do you want in return?" "Nothing." He held her gaze. "Just for you to believe in yourself as much as I believe in you. I'm scared, Gabriel. Scared to take a chance and have everything fall apart again. Scared to let you in too far. Scared to let Emily believe you'll stay. And then you don't." He didn't back down. "What if I'm already staying?" She looked at him, eyes locked, searching for cracks. She didn't find any. Instead, she saw something she never expected in a man like him: vulnerability without weakness, strength without control. "If you really are staying, then act like someone who stays, someone who builds." "I don't know how to do that," he admitted, voice deep but steady. "But I'm trying to learn, and everything you've taught me, it's what's rebuilding me." She nodded, slowly, then held out the clipboard. "Then start here. Take this. The shifts are done, but you can review them. If you really want to help, then help for real." He took the object as if it were more than paper and ink, as if it were a bridge. Later, in the tower's cafeteria, Emily came running in, hair loose, backpack bouncing, a folded paper in her hand. "Gabriel." He was seated at the corner table, finishing a coffee. He smiled when he saw her and raised his hand. "You found me. Mum said you were around. I brought something." She climbed onto the chair beside him and carefully unfolded the paper. "It's a new drawing. Look. 3 people, a woman with long hair, a man in a suit with blue eyes, and a little girl. All holding hands, behind them the sea, and at the top of the page, written in a child's handwriting, a family being built." Gabriel stared at the drawing for a while, then quietly ran a hand over his eyes. Emily was watching him. "You like it? I love it. Then you can keep it. Are you sure?" "I'm sure, but only if you promise to keep coming and staying." He looked her in the eyes, and with a steady voice, no empty promises, just presence, he answered, "I promise." In that moment, Gabriel felt something inside him align, as if for the first time in years the world was taking on a shape that made sense, not because of achievements, contracts, or titles, but because he finally understood what it meant to be part of something bigger than himself, something called home. Gabriel's fingers moved slowly across the surface of the old dark wood desk, now placed in the corner of a room hardly anyone used anymore. He was alone there. The late afternoon light filtered softly through the glass, casting golden patterns on the floor that danced as the clouds passed. The silence was deep, but not empty. In one hand, he held Emily's drawing, carefully laminated, as if it were a relic. The sentence written in purple marker still made his breathing slow every time he read it. "Family is something you build." In his other hand, Gabriel held an envelope. Inside, a simple contract, the transfer of a new apartment in the name of Olivia Bennett and her daughter Emily for an indefinite period, with the option to purchase later. No rush, no debt, just stability. He took a deep breath, stood up, and looked out the window one last time before leaving. It was already past 6, and the sky was a spectacle of amber and violet tones. Downstairs, Olivia was arranging the last items on the cleaning cart. She wore gloves with a still damp cloth slung over her shoulder. The hallways had been left spotless, as always. Emily was sitting on one of the wooden benches near the lobby, sketching in a new drawing notebook. When she saw Gabriel approaching, she jumped up in a single bounce. "You came. Every time I can." She ran to him and grabbed his coat sleeve. "I have a surprise, but you have to come to Grandma's room." Gabriel raised an eyebrow. "Grandma's room?" Olivia chuckled at the nickname. "She calls it that, the old records room where we first met. It's become a kind of sanctuary for her and, well, for me too." "Take me there," he said, handing Olivia the envelope. "But open this later. Take your time." She looked at him with calm suspicion, but slipped the envelope into her apron pocket and nodded. They went up together. Emily led the way, hopping up each step as if it were her private castle. The room looked different. The windows had been cleaned, a small green plant placed in a makeshift pot in the corner, and on the table a new picture frame. Inside it, the same photo of Gabriel and Ethan, but now joined by another frame next to it, a drawing by Emily showing the 3 of them holding hands, with her in the middle. "Welcome to the room of our story," Emily said, arms wide open. Gabriel knelt down in front of her. "It's a beautiful place, but you know what makes it that way." "What?" "The people who chose to care for it." Emily smiled proudly. Olivia leaned against the wall watching them. Then she pulled the envelope from her pocket and, with a silent gesture, asked for permission to open it. Gabriel nodded. She read the first lines, her eyes quickly scanning the clauses until she reached the final part. Her hand tightened around the paper, and when she looked up at him, there was surprise, emotion, and fear. "Is this real?" "It is. A home is available. Whenever you're ready, a place that's yours, safe, clean, and open." "And what do you want in return?" "Nothing. I've already received more than I asked for, and if you want to call it payback, then it's for Ethan, for Emily, for everything you've taught me." She stepped closer, slowly. "I'm not used to things that don't cost me. This will still cost you. Commitment, routine, choices, but never fear." She placed the paper back in the envelope, walked over and knelt beside him. "Are you sure, Gabriel? Because I don't want to build false roots. Emily's already lost too much." He looked at her with clear eyes, no hesitation. "Olivia, I want to build those roots with you, no matter how long it takes, no matter if it's slow, but I want to be part of what you call home." She took a deep breath, eyes misting over. "Then let's do this the right way. No rush. One day at a time." "One day at a time," he echoed. Emily approached with another piece of paper in her hand. "This is today's last drawing." Gabriel took the paper. On it were 3 hearts connected by a continuous line. Beneath it, in a child's handwriting, it read, "It's not blood that makes us family, it's love." He swallowed hard, feeling the weight and beauty of it all. Olivia touched his hand. "We accept you, Gabriel, but not out of pity, and not because of promises. We accept you because you stayed." He gripped her hand firmly. "I wouldn't know how to leave anymore." The next morning, the first rays of sunlight slipped through the tower's glass with a gentleness that felt new. Gabriel stood in the ground floor hallway, watching Emily run toward the door with her backpack bouncing, laughing. Olivia followed close behind, now wearing a different uniform, operations supervisor. "Ready for another day?" he asked. "One of many," she replied, smiling. Emily turned around. "Our new place has a balcony. I'm going to hang all my drawings there." Gabriel smiled. "Just don't forget to leave room for more. I'm going to draw until the sky runs out," she shouted before running off again. Olivia looked at him, her expression full of something he'd never experienced with anyone before. It wasn't awe, it wasn't gratitude, it was trust. "Welcome home, Gabriel," she said. He took a deep breath. For the first time in years, the air felt light. And in that moment, he knew with absolute certainty, it wasn't the tower he had built that made him whole. It was the ground he was learning to share. Hear what it meant to you. Remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons. This is really important for the channel. Really important. And if you're ready for another story of love and hope, click the first card or the second one to watch the full playlist. See you there.